All right, I'm Huckleberry. Welcome to another episode of Last One to Katahdin Wins. How to through hike the Appalachian Trail when you're old enough to know better. Today's episode, we're going to deal with a jargon, terminology that is special for the Appalachian Trail and will help you navigate, I think, socially in particular on the AT. Oh, look, there's some jargon right there. The AT, the Appalachian Trail. There's a lot of words. And I'm sure a lot of these you know already because you're reading, right, and studying up and talking to people. So you've heard a lot of this. I'll run over them anyway. And I'll tell you what they mean. They help you. I think actually helps. It'll help smooth out social situations if you're familiar with a lot of these terms. They get used a lot. These are ones that get used a lot. So, for instance, this guy right here, this guy is a through hiker. He's not a section hiker. Look at him. He's been on the trail a long time. He surely is not a day hiker. He does not look like he's a slack packer to me either. This guy is hiking the whole thing. This person in particular was a Nobo, northbound through hiker. I met him all along the trail for months and months. This picture was taken up in, I don't know, New England somewhere. It was 3/4 of the way or more through the hike. And he was going from Georgia to Maine, from Springer Mountain in Georgia to Mount Katahdin in Maine. After I met this fella here and took this picture of not too long later, I started meeting Sobo hikers, southbound hikers, people that started in the north and were hiking south. Why would you do that? Well, you can start later, for one thing, right? You start in June or later and then hike south. You've got all summer right into winter to get through those southern states. It's not like if you're hiking in the north, you have to be done by the middle of October because Katahdin will close because it will snow in Maine in October. So some people are flip-flop hikers. They might start middle, hike north, and then come back to middle, hike south. I met flip-floppers, which were people that got hurt. And so once they got hurt, they headed up, they healed up, and they were behind the time now. And to get the northern part done in time, they would hitchhike to Katahdin or drive there, then hike south from there in order to get that northern cold part done before winter set in. Section hikers are just hiking a piece of the trail, big or small, doesn't matter. I think when someone calls himself a section hiker, they might intend to hike the whole thing eventually, piece by piece. They often say, oh, I'm just a section hiker. But you know what? Like a friend of mine said, we're all just section hiking until we get to Katahdin. So day hikers just there for the day. They're not camping out. And that's okay. They're all fun people to talk to. They're all following the blazes. These white blazes mark the entire Appalachian Trail. There's millions of them. And you can almost always, but not always, but almost always see one. If you don't see one ahead of you, turn around, you'll see one behind you. People start looking hard for these if the trail's real nice. They think, oh God, I must have gotten off the trail. This is too nice. And so they start wishing they could see a white blaze to be sure they're in the right place. But there's a lot of them. You generally don't run short. If you do, you check your phone app, your GPS app on the phone, and see if you're on the trail. Nothing to worry about. There are other blazes. There are blue blazes that mark side trails of the Appalachian Trail, like campsites, water sources, things like that. And some people jokingly say the yellow marks down the middle of a road are yellow blazes. And maybe some people follow those yellow blazes when they are hiking the Appalachian Trail. A shelter is where you try to get at the end of the day, most likely. You may camp in the shelter itself or at, campsites nearby. You will want to check your resources, your guidebook or your phone app to see if the shelter's got decent campsites and how many of them they have. Otherwise, you might decide you want to camp somewhere else. Anyway, if you go to a shelter, there'll be a privy. Some people, even if they camp somewhere else, they'll try to visit a shelter to use the privy because they don't like pooping in a hole, digging a cat hole and take care of business that way. Whereas if you camp in a stealth camp like this one of mine, you have to dig a hole to go to the bathroom in. And you have to do it right. It's got to be deep enough. You got to cover that paper up so nobody has to see those white flags. Oh, God, I hate that. And but stealth or dispersed camps are nice for a little privacy sometimes, just a little bit of a break from other people, or just they're in the right place. And or they're just nice. They're by a stream. They're just a nice place to camp. So you have a lot of reasons. The cowboy camp, folks, I'm sorry, that's not the same as a stealth camp. That's when you camp without a tent. You just sleep on the ground like a cowboy. That's cowboy camp, okay? A lot of times you want to go to a hostel. I bet you want to go to a hostel about once a week. I had to go there about every 5 days. I had to go to town. I had to resupply, had to shower, had to do laundry so that your skin doesn't rot off of you. You got to stay a little bit clean. And at a hostel, there's a hiker box. And a hiker box is where hikers leave things they don't want, like food they don't like. Sometimes I liked it a lot. And equipment they don't need, like maybe they broke a pole, they bought a new pair of poles, they left their good pole behind. Maybe I broke a pole, I didn't want to buy a new set. Oh, look, there's a pole, just what I needed. The trail provides. So get used to looking at the hiker boxes. Even at a hotel, ask about a hiker box. But you're there to resupply. That's the reason you pulled off at a hostel. So you get a shuttle to the grocery store, you can get more food so you continue your trip. You may do a whole 0-day rest up at that hostel or hotel. You need a break, your body needs to heal, build those proteins back. Sometimes you just Nero. You hike just a few miles to that hostel. You nearly zero. You take such a short hiking day. Again, so you can shower, so you can resupply, so you can do laundry, and so you can heal up. It's important to do that, healing up. Let me tell you, got to heal up. Some people slack pack too from a hostel. They get a ride, they'll pay for a ride 10 miles down the road, and they'll hike back to the hostel without their pack. Now, some people say this isn't backpacking because, they're not carrying a backpack. But some folks need to do that to make up time, or because they're injured, they want to not fall too far behind. So maybe they slack pack to make up for those things. We're all in the green tunnel for a long time. You're in the green tunnel. You can barely see out of the trees. The leaves are so thick. And this almost justifies New Hampshire. New Hampshire's got great views, but you got to hike up and down these terrible, steep, eroded trails. But you got great views as a reward. And when you're in that green tunnel, you think to yourself, I'd be willing to climb a pretty steep hill just to see something far away. I didn't mind the green tunnel myself. I liked it. A lot of times there's trail magic. It's one of the main things that hikers look forward to. People just at a trail crossing on a road, they set up, they give you cold drinks and all kinds of delicious food. Sometimes they cook hot dogs, hamburgers. One time we had homemade macaroni and cheese with sloppy joes for trail magic way down in Georgia. You look forward to it. It's hard to justify it because you're on vacation, but these people are former hikers and they're just, or something. And find out why they're doing it. That's half the fun. Find out why they're taking care of these hikers in such a nice way, why they're such angels on the trail angels. At the end, you got to hike your own hike, HYOA, hi-o, right? You got your own way of doing it. And many of discussion ends with the expression, hike your own hike, like this guy here, clearly hiking his own hike, carrying that dog. I met him, he was a southbounder. And as far as I know, he came hundreds of miles from Maine carrying this dog. Dog must have meant a lot to him. An old little dog that went on the trip with this fella. Pretty cool if you ask me. There's a lot of other terms that are, worth knowing. I don't see them as important, but that depends on your own hike. Hike your own hike, right? A shuttle, clearly just a ride to town. You pay for shuttles. They're generally not free. If it's a free shuttle, that's more like hitchhiking. If you ask me, I'm mostly hitchhiked. I had no luck yogiing. I knew people, they could yogi, they could go to somebody's picnic and just talk to people, chat them up and comment on how good that food looked and get some food that way. And anyway, it's fun to do anyway. You get to talk to people. A shakedown hike is when you go on a trip, go on a hike before the Appalachian Trail, check your gear out and figure out what you can live without. And after my shakedown, I still had like 24 pounds of gear. This was all my gear. I ended up with a base weight of just 18 pounds. I left behind 4, 5, 6 pounds worth of stuff. And every pound was worth losing. And I wish I'd lost more. 18-pound base weight means my weight without food and water. And I would add, 15 pounds of food and water. And that's a lot more weight. I mean, 18 pounds doesn't sound that bad, but 34, 35 pounds, now you're starting to carry something. So sometimes you would camel up before a dry camp or a long hike to the next water source. You drink a lot of water, you pack a lot of water in containers so that you could go a long way without water. You could make Gork, good old raisins and peanuts, the most basic trail mix. It's cheap, it's nutritious, and you could add to the Gork with other stuff. I don't like to myself, but a lot of people, particularly like M&Ms in their Gork. I would not turn it away if you gave me Gork with M&Ms in it. Some folks would cold soak their food. They would not cook anything. And so they would still eat ramen, but they would soak it in cold water, maybe for half a day. And then they would eat it and claim to like it. And let me tell you, you lose a pound, you leave a pound behind if you cold soak, right? No stove, no fuel. It might be worth eating cold ramen. No, I don't think so. Trail Days is in Damascus, Virginia in May. It's just under 500 miles into your trip. I think it's 465 miles. And just about where you end up if you start at the beginning of April anyway. And it's a big party. Thousands of people are there for couple of days. And it's fun. I didn't go there myself because I was worried about making time. And if I had to do over again, I think I'd go to Trail Days. I really do. I think I will go now that I'm done, maybe next year. LNT, leave no trace. That's where you don't make a mess while you're camping. And the idea is to leave things in as good a shape as they were when you arrived. And so you dig a cat hole that's deep enough to bury your poop and also to hide your toilet paper so you don't leave flags behind. Switchbacks is when the trail is designed going back and forth, zigzagging up a trail, up a hill or down a hill, so the trail doesn't erode. It's to protect the trail. It's not for you, it's for the trail. And in the north in New England, they don't do a lot of switchbacks, man. You may find cairns, though, in New England, where a lot of the trails above tree line, there's nothing to paint a mark on. And so there were these big piles of rocks to mark the trail, partly because you can see these piles of rocks in the winter, too. And they're eerie and lovely. And anyway, there's a typical New England trail there, a lot of erosion going on. So R&R, that's roots and rocks. We've got a lot of R&R today that's not rest and rehabilitation. That's roots and rocks. And PUD, pointless up and down. Lots of PUD. You'll hear that term, PUD. Oh, a lot of PUD today. How else can you accomplish 16 Mount Everests during the course of hiking the Appalachian Trail? And the Triple Crown hiking, that's when people go crazy. They hike a trail like the Appalachian Trail and they want to hike some more. And there's another trail called the Pacific Crest Trail, the PCT. People go hike that. It's another 2,000 miles. Then they hike more. There's the Continental Divide Trail, the CDT. All three of them are the Triple Crown. And once you hike one, oh, it might get in your blood. Hasn't gotten in my blood, not yet. But it might. It might. So there you have it. Until next time, this is Huckleberry Min wishing you happy trails until we meet again.